The Assembly will hear an address by His Excellency Christian Ntsay, Prime Minister and Head of Government of the Republic of Madagascar. I request protocol to escort His Excellency and invite him to address the Assembly.
Excellences,
Mr. President, Heads of State and Government, United Nations Secretary General, distinguished delegates, ladies and gentlemen. I have come here with a profound sense of honour and responsibility to address you today with the mission entrusted to me by His Excellency Mr. Andry Rajoelina, President of the Republic of Madagascar, and on behalf of the Malagasy people. I wish to applaud the election of Mr. Philemon Yang, His Excellency, to the presidency of the 79th session of the General Assembly. Your exemplary parcours and your wealth of knowledge in terms of global affairs are undeniable assets to guide our work. Rest assured, Your Excellency, of the support of Madagascar in the fulfilment of your noble mission. Madagascar, as newly elected Vice President of this General Assembly, is honoured to serve for this term 2024 to 2025. Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the theme of this session of the General Assembly, leaving no one behind, acting together for the advancement of peace, sustainable development and human dignity for present and future generations, particularly resonates today in this time of grave uncertainty in the world and for the world. Today, we are strongly reminded of how interconnected the different global challenges are and how important it is to engage in a collective response with solidarity and being resolute. Indeed, peace, the fragile foundation of a world that faces divisions, is today being jeopardized by many different crises, a multitude of crises with dangerous and profound geostrategic ramifications. Far from being a regional conflict, the war in Ukraine is shaking the international order and exacerbating geopolitical tensions, worsening food and energy insecurity, and putting global peace and security in peril. Terrorism and transnational crime continue to sow terror and distress, affecting in a disproportionate way the most vulnerable populations. The proliferation of weapons and drugs, in particular in conflict zones, are feeding a hellish cycle of violence and instability, thus hindering the long-term development objectives and mortgaging off the future of entire generations. The climate emergency has become a tangible and devastating reality. The multiplication of extreme climate events, the degradation of ecosystems and the loss of biodiversity are all warning signs that should push us to act with a sense of determination and clear-sightedness. Glowing inequalities across the world make fertile ground for social tensions, for conflicts and for instability. The COVID-19 pandemic, far from having been a great leveller, has exacerbated existing gaps, shedding light on how vulnerable healthcare systems are and social protection systems are in many countries, and further widening the gap between rich countries and developing countries. President, ladies and gentlemen, Faced with these challenges, we cannot give in to fear or to fatality. Multilateralism, as embodied by the United Nations, remains the best weapon that we have available to us and remains our collective instrument to build a more safe and peaceful world. However, and unfortunately, we must note and we must realise that the multilateral system now that was created in the post-war period is struggling to effectively respond to the challenges of a world that is so swiftly and significantly changing. A courageous and ambitious reform of the United Nations, in particular the Security Council, is now more than ever essential. Africa, which is a continent with huge demographic and economic growth, should not be left to the sidelines of the hubs of global decision-making. The effective implementation of the Paris Agreement and the strengthening of commitments made to reduce greenhouse gas emissions are absolutely essential in order to preserve the future of our planet and to guarantee the well-being of future generations. To this end, the President of the Republic of Madagascar, Mr. Ntsay recalled during his statement in Glasgow at the COP26 conference that took place in 2022, how important it is to ramp up the mobilisation of $100 billion in line with the Paris Agreement in order to finance the energy transition policy in Africa. The fight against climate change can therefore not be decoupled from development issues. It's essential to support developing countries in their transition towards a green and resilient economy by providing them the financial and technology resources that they require, while recognising their right to development. It is essential and urgent to promote a development model for a more inclusive and more equitable world that leaves nobody behind. Above and beyond words, now is the time to act. It is time now to turn our commitments into concrete actions, especially for Africa, by investing massively in education, in healthcare, in drinking water, in social protection for all, in infrastructure and innovation, and in job creation, in particular for young people and for women. For inclusive multilateralism, it is time to promote more just and more equitable international trade, and to promote and guarantee equitable access to knowledge and to technology and to the finance and investment systems, and they need to be fairer as well, and the same goes for social justice and sustainable peace in the world. President, ladies and gentlemen, Madagascar, aware of these global challenges and of how urgent it is to bring concerted and lasting solutions, is committed with a sense of determination alongside the United Nations and its member states to build a more just and sustainable world with more solidarity. The Fihavanana, which is a national way of living together, is profoundly rooted in Malagasy culture and guides our action. It brings across our profound aspiration to live in harmony with mutual respect and solidarity, ensuring we leave nobody by the wayside and never forgetting the most vulnerable, working thus for a more fair society. The general policy of the state of Madagascar, implementing the vision of His Excellency Mr. Andry Rajoelina, President of the Republic, places human capital as the main key pillar for development. Over the last 5 years, we've invested enormously in education, in training, health, security, innovative and inclusive social programs, the fight against malnutrition, and in infrastructure in order to catch up with our development deficits and thus break the vicious cycle of poverty. The country continues to invest massively in these areas, which are the main foundation of our actions to foster human development. True to our country's tradition of being a peaceful and tolerant people, Madagascar has made democracy, the respect for the rule of law and good governance key tools to maintain stability, to strengthen peace and security, and to consolidate our path towards sustainable development. And of course, this is shown and very clearly proven explicitly in our classification in the Global Peace Index that has placed Madagascar in second place. So that's the second most peaceful country in sub-Saharan Africa in 2024. Of course, we do nevertheless have many challenges. However, the leadership of His Excellence, Mr. Andry Rajoelina, President of the Republic, is in line with the hopes of our compatriots who entrusted him with a new term in 2024 to engage in agricultural and industrial transformations for Madagascar, to create more jobs and decent income for young people and rural people, to bring added value to the Madagascar economy, and to bring more peace and sustainable development for the country. Today, Madagascar is the third largest rice producer in Africa. However, our ambition is to become number one, with new policy guidance for regional development coming from the government to optimise farming in the rice paddies of our country, focusing on new knowledge and new technology in terms of using agricultural inputs for all farmers, and to improve irrigation infrastructure in order to double, even triple productivity on the short term, focusing on the so-called agricultural aggregation to better attract private investment in intensive rice production, and also other crops like potatoes and dry grains, etc. When it comes to development challenges, Madagascar intends to bolster its tireless efforts to improve our road network by building the flagship Sunshine Road project, the Route du Soleil, that connects the regions on the east side of our Great Islands, and this is going to bring about more growth and investment, public and private investment, more fluid trade, to develop tourism in our regions, and to rapidly transform regional economies and strengthen peace and security in the country. These efforts on our road network are also part of our government's priority actions to carry out large infrastructure projects. Renewable energy is thus one of the priorities that my government has today to achieve its industrialisation plan, and its many actions seeking to improve the living conditions of our population, in particular the rural population, by substantially reducing the state budget in a lasting way by subsidising the cost of electricity production to carefully support the development projects. In this regard, we are now ramping up our solar energy project with 47 different solar panel projects in the country, and we are also starting to build hydroelectric power stations and solar power stations with private investors and development partners that will allow us to reach additional production of more than 500 megawatts over the next 4 to 5 years. The goal that we seek is to double the shares of the agricultural and industrial sectors in Madagascar's GDP in order to bring about real growth that creates jobs and sustainable income for youth and for rural people, thus transforming our economy and substantially reducing poverty to enable the development of our great island to soar. Aware of the climate change challenges and the challenges that that causes for peace, security and development, Madagascar, although we are one of the most vulnerable to climate change, is a very low greenhouse gas emitter, and we are facing harsh blows from cyclones, drought, coastal erosion and loss of biodiversity, and this risks considerably reducing, even annihilating, economic and social progress made through agricultural and industrial transformations that we've been engaging in thus far. Since Madagascar is one of the few countries that is actually saving the planet with a negative carbon footprint thanks to our forests, we're actually one of the real green lungs of the African continent. In light of this, I urge the international community to ramp up and to accelerate climate adaptation finance for the most vulnerable countries, in particular island countries like Madagascar. Madagascar is determined to preserve our precious natural assets for future generations. President, ladies and gentlemen, by way of conclusion, Madagascar, more than ever now, is appealing for strengthened multilateralism that is more just and that is based on dialogue, cooperation and solidarity. Madagascar will continue to work tirelessly alongside the United Nations and its member states to build a world of peace, development and dignity for all. Thank you for your attention.
On behalf of the Assembly, I wish to thank the Prime Minister and Head of Government of the Republic of Madagascar.